This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
It's amazing what my students with special needs can accomplish. Their pride is priceless. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome back. It's been too long to Delegate Steve Landis. We really appreciate your being on. First began serving in 1996 into your 11th term, and with one member moving to run in another chamber, I think you're now 10th in seniority. The official list would say 11.
Right.
But I think you're 10.
I am, David, and then my colleague Lionel Spruill, who's running for the state senate, will be leaving the House, and so move up one, even without having the election with the entire House up.
Right. The viewers around the Commonwealth certainly know your name, and hopefully they know you from chairing the Education Committee and Vice Chair of Appropriations. But the ones who know you best are in Augusta County and part of Rockingham and part of Albemarle, where your district lies.
The 25th district, I'm very fortunate. I always tell people that I've got the best views of the Blue Ridge Mountains from both sides, both the valley and then from Albemarle County.
You really do. And if they haven't been in that part of the Commonwealth, they certainly need to be there. We'll put in a plug in for some good tourism up that way.
That's right.
Well, I really appreciate your being on, and one of the most pressing subjects that you're dealing with appropriations and Senate Finance is dealing with, the governor's dealing with all, is the revenue shortfall. So talk to us some about that and what it means for the biennial budget.
Well, it's going to be a challenge. No one likes to have to deal with having fewer revenues that you anticipate, but we basically estimate the revenues that come into the state, and when the economy doesn't do as well, that can cause a downturn, and in this case we saw the income tax and the sales tax revenues drop more significantly than we anticipated. We budget and have revenue estimates that are very conservative to start with. That has been through both Republican and Democratic administrations. But we have about $268 million that is not coming in that we were anticipating. That's going to impact basically what I think state and local employees that we're going to receive a raise based on meeting the revenue estimate. That is something that we're going to have to look at. Probably is going to be problematic at this point to try to meet that obligation. But we'll look for savings working with the governor. I know he's issued basically a request to all what we call non-exempt state agencies to look for 5% savings. That in and of itself will mean some challenges for state agencies. So all those things will kind of come to a culmination in December when he announces his revisions to the biennial budget.
So to help our viewers get a little bit more of the picture, the revenues aren't in a sense, down, but they didn't grow as much as was expected. So they grew a little bit, but not as much. Would that be correct?
That's it. Basically, we anticipated that we would be at a higher rate, if you will, where the economy is, and that the tax revenues would be producing, more dollars, and actually we're producing fewer dollars. We're growing historically. We grew coming out of recessions somewhere upwards towards 8% in really, really good years, but at least 5 or 6%. We're more in the range of 2 or 3% at this point, so we're about half of where we historically have been in Virginia, and that's a challenge.
Other times when this has occurred, you all and others have looked to Northern Virginia as maybe where there wasn't as much growth, or there was a loss of higher income jobs. Is that part of the situation this time, or is it more than that?
It looks like, David, from what we can tell at this point, that we are replacing some of the jobs we've lost, but the challenge is those jobs are paying about half of what the jobs that they're replacing. So if somebody was making $80,000 in an old job, that job has gone away. The jobs that are coming online are paying about $40,000, if you want to use that analogy. So that obviously means you have less income taxes that are collected because people are making less, and that means they're spending less.
Sure.
So the sales tax impact, obviously.
The General Assembly has done a great job in setting aside money in a rainy day fund. Is this situation of such that you would anticipate tapping into any of that, or is it not that, might I say, not that dire?
Well, we anticipate listening to what Secretary Brown, the Secretary of Finance, told us at our meeting most recently with both House Appropriations, Senate Finance, and House Finance, that they probably will be looking at tapping into, and I believe that the rainy day fund can be used because of the trigger, as we say, not meeting the revenue estimates. And then again, we have that $300 million that was set aside, $150 million each year of the biennium that was there for a pay raise. So that will take care of a good portion of the shortfall. But we still have to look at other areas. And the first year of the biennium will be less of a challenge than the second year. You carry forward basically whatever you don't, or whether you have something or you don't have, dollars to go into the second year, and that'll be a challenge even more so.
Well, if we move to another subject, and another one that's really near and dear to you and your leadership in the General Assembly, and that's the future of public education in the Commonwealth. And it's certainly something that's been studied and been looked at, but now there's a special joint subcommittee working on that. So bring us up to date on that.
Well, I feel very fortunate we passed a resolution this year with the support of the Senate. Senator Steve Newman, who chairs the Senate Education and Health Committee, and myself are working together with a number of members of both the House Education Committee and the Senate Education and Health Committee to form this new joint committee. And what we're going to be doing is looking at specifically the first year and the second year, looking at the standards of quality and the revisions there. Really, the General Assembly hasn't taken a deep dive or a real close look at that since 2004. We're also looking at technology and how that relates and interacts with both the SOQs and the SOLs, the standards of learning, and how effective basically the state statutes are in making sure those things match up. So we're going to be looking at that. But in another sense, we hope that this will be an ongoing effort to really look at all the things that are going on in public education. We're looking at a redesign for high school and changing how that's going to be going forward. We're looking at reducing the number of SOL tests, and when you look at a reduction, that also frees up opportunities for other things that we can try to do to provide a better benefit to the students' experience in elementary and secondary schools. We're also going to be looking at and following what the administration is looking at related to the Standards of Learning Innovation Committee and what they're looking at. So we're going to be following all those things, and that will keep us busy, to say the least. But more importantly, we'll have that ongoing group that is made up of individuals that are going to be seeing those issues during the regular session of the General Assembly, so that maybe they'll have a broader understanding and broader perspective when those issues come forward.
Is 2018 maybe a target date that I've heard for a redesign of the high school? So that's not that far away.
It's not, and the challenge, David, anytime you're looking at changing a new system, it'll provide great opportunities for us to allow students to have apprenticeships, mentorships, internships, and really do some of those things that they don't have as much time. If they're going on a career technical track, they might be able to come out of high school with a credential in whatever they're learning or whatever apprenticeship opportunity they take advantage of. For those that are going to college, maybe they can have even the first year of their undergraduate requirements pretty much under the belt, so to speak, and have accomplished that before they go into college, whether it's 2-year or 4-year. So that provides great opportunity and more cost-effective way of getting people into college or out in the workforce. But you also have to come up with an assessment on how well those students are doing and to measure across the state. As I like to say, we've got school systems as small as Norton and Highland County to school systems as large as Fairfax County. And we have to come up with a system that's fair and equitable that can measure how well those students are doing in those areas with the apprenticeship and the like. And that's going to be a challenge.
It will, and with that, unless that time frame would change in any way, it's really a push for legislators, for the executive branch. There would be a new governor who would be at the time, the Board of Education, and then it comes right down to the localities and the superintendent. I mean, it's a major undertaking, to be sure.
It is, and I think it's a great opportunity. We've been hearing for years that we need to really and want to get the SOL testing pretty much completed by the 9th or 10th grade with the basic requirements, and then provide that additional opportunity again, no matter what track or path students are taking, and provide them the opportunity to really explore and to learn more about what they want to do in their future career and their future life. So it's great.
Oh, the public education system served you well, and another generation it served me well, but as many people say, it's the past century's model that we're still using into a time when there's so much change. Let me mention one other thing. A neighboring delegate colleague of yours, Dickie Bell, has been working along with others on virtual education, and with the requirement, I believe, coming online very soon, or maybe it's already come online, that graduates would take at least one course online. It would appear that this process that you're in might even provide for greater opportunities to do that.
We hope so. Dickie Bell's been a leader in virtual education. We hope that eventually we'll have a virtual school that students across Virginia can access. There is a requirement that every student take at least one online course. In fact, I have a freshman in high school at Fort Defiance High School in Augusta County, and he's taking a computer applications class, and that will meet his requirement. But we don't want that to be the only thing in his experience that he accesses online. And there's a great opportunity. For instance, what if a student wants to take Chinese in a rural part of Virginia because that's just an interest that they have? Well, they're not going to have a teacher that's going to provide that kind of opportunity for them in probably their locality, but there may be in Fairfax County or one of the other localities that may have a teacher that has that expertise and could teach that course online. And we should avail ourselves, if we can, that opportunity for students. And again, if we're looking at that high school redesign, there's going to be more opportunity for that type of experience in the future. So we hope that'll be kind of the trend.
Oh, that's exciting times, to be sure. Now, what about higher ed? Is that also an exciting time? Although I don't believe it falls in your district. Certainly the flagship University of Virginia has been under some scrutiny about the rising costs, and yet having a fairly sizable amount of money set aside. How's it going in higher ed, particularly in our state institutions? And then if you want to, comment on the privates as well.
Well, higher education is going through changes as well in many ways. What we're seeing in public education related to technology and just kind of the higher ed and the format that we have now going to serve us going forward? And you talk to many administrators, faculty, and students, and there's a lot of discussion about how that's going to be transformed and how that will change going forward. So what we're looking at is really, I think, areas that we need to look at reform, whether it's funding and how that's going to be provided. You know, UVA should be congratulated for having a fairly significant balance for a fund that basically was made from donations that individuals made. But they need to also look at and take into consideration the ability that since they have those funds, that, you know, the biggest concern we hear is access and tuition costs and the rise of tuition costs. And they can do something about that with those funds. The other thing I think, David, we're looking at is, and I've got a couple bills related to higher education reform, we need to also look at how we can make our system better going forward, how we can tweak the system. One of the things I have, House Bill 1401 deals with making sure that every student, faculty, staff member, and then lecturers and guest invited speakers have the same opportunity for free speech. There's been some problem across the country where both sides are not allowed to be heard on campus. And when I came through college, that was the advantage. You could have that debate, you could have that civil dialogue,
right.
And we need to continue that. So that's one bill. Another bill I have is House Bill 1402 that deals with boards of visitors and their officers, and making sure that those folks are Virginia residents. There has been some discussion about making sure that those individuals that serve on those boards are accountable to Virginia and Virginia taxpayers. If you're out of state, you may be really not have as much of an allegiance to the Commonwealth of Virginia as you would if you're in-state and a resident. So that's one thing that we're looking for, is to have a requirement just for those officers of both their committees and the boards of visitors, the rector and the vice rector, to be Virginia residents. And I think that's both those are modest reforms, but those are the kinds of things we need to continue to look at.
And for our viewers who want to read those bills, they may already be logged in and bookmarked for the General Assembly site or the LIS. If not, we're going to put up on the screen your address, which is a very easy one to remember, stevelandis.com.
Yep.
And if they go there, one of the links that they'll see immediately would be for legislation.
Yep.
And that takes them where they can read 1401, 1402.
Right. And they can read the detail. Both bills are pretty simple, but we were talking about technology earlier.
Right.
Members of the General Assembly have tried to utilize technology, and I'm very fortunate. I've got staff folks that keep our website up to date, and we want to provide the information and be as transparent as possible about the process and what we're doing related to legislation.
Now, if they click on that site and they look at legislation, they'll find another bill, and it's a bill I believe that you had last year,
Yes.
and it failed at some point in the process,
Yep.
and it's back. Tell us about that one.
Well, I had a bill that the governor vetoed last year. I think as much as anything that the administration needed more time to really look at it and to consider it. They didn't really seem to have great opposition to it, but this year's bill is House Bill 1393, and it sets up what we call a direct primary care agreement. And what it allows is, with individuals that have high deductible plans or small businesses that provide high deductible plans to their employees, it would allow the employee or the individual to contract directly with their doctor for certain services. For most of the catastrophic types of illnesses or situations where somebody would have a high deductible plan or a health insurance plan, obviously is the one that's going to cover most of what is needed for somebody's individual health care or their family members. But the direct primary care agreement allows doctors to contract directly with their patient or a group of patients, if a small business wanted to offer this as something that they could encourage their employees to take advantage of. And it would include certain things like you can have a certain number of appointments a year, and there'd be a set cost for that. and the employer and the employee would know what those costs would be because of a contract that the doctor has with the individual or the individual business owner. The great advantage of this is it allows someone to know what their healthcare basic expenditures are going to be for prevention care. And it would fit very well with a health savings account or one of those types of products as well. So it's a great reform. We're working out the details again. There's already discussion going on behind the scenes with the medical society and small business folks. And we'll be trying to work with the administration again this year to see if we can get that through. It passed both the House and Senate, and we just need to make the final hurdle with the governor.
Is that something that other states have done, or is it would this be a time when Virginia's first?
Well, unfortunately, we wouldn't be first in this case. There have been some other states that have utilized this, and it's worked fairly well. Interestingly enough, some of the health plans and the health insurers are the ones that have had the most concerns about it because it's drawn to the insurance section of the code. They would like to see it drawn to the health code, so we're having that discussion. But importantly, I think it is a reform that we can provide, and hopefully we'll get everybody together and can have that available for our citizens after this coming session.
Now, if someone goes on your site right during this show or right away before you maybe file another bill, they will find, as I did, one bill that seemed to be a non-controversial bill, at least in one chamber, that was carried over in the Senate rehab. You might speak to that bill just very briefly, but also tell our viewers about bills that are carried over between the long session and the short session.
Well, the one advantage of the long session is we are allowed to carry over bills, or more importantly, the committee that has jurisdiction can carry over the bill. Usually that means they're going to be looking at the legislation and maybe reviewing that so that they can either amend it or change it and pass that out, or sometimes it happens where it still needs some more work, so the committee of jurisdiction won't actually act on it, but then it allows you an opportunity to bring it forward during the next session. I've got one bill, I believe it's House Bill 1904, that was basically brought forward to allow businesses that sell cigars or high-end tobacco products to be able to also provide a spirit or a glass of wine or a beer for events and the like that they were having. The ABC laws are being looked at in real detail, and they haven't been for a long time. So it was brought into kind of a longer, bigger study related to that to see if how that could be dealt with and what would happen with that. So that is ongoing right now. In fact, I've been in discussions with some of the subcommittee members that are looking at that and the proponents of the bill that brought that to my attention. So we'll see what happens.
In our closing minute or two, what are anything else that you'd want to talk about, either whether it's the International Trade Corporation or JLARC or
Well, one of the bills I had this past year, which I was very fortunate to work with the Virginia Manufacturers Association, the Virginia Maritime Association, and the Virginia Chamber, and that was to set up a new Virginia International Trade Corporation modeled on our Tourism Corporation. This agency basically will take, if you will, the unit that is in the Virginia Economic Development Partnership that deals with international trade, and we'll set this new agency up. The governor will appoint a board, will appoint a new CEO. We're supposed to be getting the report this month from the Secretary of Commerce and Trade, and we'll go from there. The General Assembly will get a chance to kind of take a look at that before the session. But international trade, we're seeing great benefit for Virginia and Virginia businesses, especially small businesses and agriculture, and we want to continue that. And this is a way to kind of have Virginia be a leader in that regard. So I was very fortunate to be involved in that, and we'll be looking at that during this session as well.
Dr. Steve Landis, we very much appreciate your being on This Week in Richmond. People will follow you on your website, which is up to date and has the information that they need, whether they're in your district or around the Commonwealth, and certainly people with interest in education will be following closely your leadership on the House Education Committee. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
David, thank you for having me.
Yes.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.